During the summer, there are a few types of movies that you expect to get. You have your couple of superhero movies, your comedies, your phenomenal action movies, and then there's that one movie that will probably blow everything else out of the water. And then you have your garbage blockbusters. Transformers has always been a part of this latter category, and this film is no exception. Transformers Rise of the Beasts is the sequel to the prequel to the original Michael Bay pentology. That sentence was almost as confusing as this film's plot, but not quite. This film follows Noah Diaz along with Optimus Prime and his team as they attempt to keep the transwarp key out of the hands of Unicron and his minions. Along the way, they meet up with the Maximals, which are like giant robots that look like animals, one of whom is named Optimus Primal. Get it? In the end, the two teams unite and they save the day. These movies have never been great, or even good for that matter. And I know this. I know that they were never meant to win Oscars or anything, but every aspect of this movie will be treated as a choice, and some of those choices are bad and will be judged. The first of these bad choices is the script. Whoever wrote the screenplay for this movie needs to be fired. The team of people who wrote this screenplay need to be fired. This film feels like they hired the worst action coordinator, the worst stand-up comedian, and the worst horror movie director, put them all in a room together, and told them they had to come up with a screenplay by the end of the day. This movie violently oscillates between action, comedy, and horror, not being able to stick to any of them, and consequently failing in all three categories. The one gleaming sliver of hope that is desperately trying to hold this slowly decaying story together is Pete Davidson's Mirage. He is the only funny character in this entire movie, and the film, to its credit, smartly devotes the most amount of screen time to Davidson's Transformer. But any other smart or even comprehensible ideas are hard to find in this film. For example, I'm not even going to bother explaining this, but if you see the movie, you'll understand. Why wouldn't Optimus Primal just destroy the transwarp key when he had it, instead of splitting it in two? Anyways, it's self-evident by the very nature of this movie that this film is CGI heavy, dependent even, and the effects in this film will age like milk. You can actually see during the course of the movie the CGI getting progressively worse. And by the end, I had thought to myself that the original cartoon looked more convincing than whatever green screen composition I was looking at. An observation that I've heard people make is that visual effects have gotten worse over the years. This is obviously not true, technology has advanced, but I think I know what they're trying to say. I think what they mean is that we've lost the ability to use visual effects in unique and creative ways. When visual effects were first being born, they were a novelty. Not novelty in the sense of trinket or gimmick, but in the sense of innovation. Because that's just what they were, an innovation. This was back in a time when the story still came first and was not at the mercy of the VFX houses. Believe it or not, people used to only make a movie when they had an idea, not brand IP to keep in the public consciousness. I've always loved this story about the Return of the King, the last Lord of the Rings film. During the production of that movie, a lot of VFX animators were employed, and apparently it had gotten down to the wire and they still hadn't created a 3D model for Barad-dûr, the giant tower. And it was Christmas break, so the animators decided that it was going to have to explode off camera. But when the animators had gotten back from break, they were surprised to find a fully rendered, working 3D model of Barad-dûr. It turns out one of the animators spent his entire Christmas break painstakingly creating a working, destructible 3D model of Barad-dûr just because he was so devoted to seeing it explode in that movie. I know this is an extreme example, but you know what I don't see? I don't see anybody putting in half that effort or passion into creating a Transformers movie. Except for Pete Davidson. He gets a pass on this film. This movie falls into the same category as the Godzilla films, where nobody really cares about the human characters. We just want to see a couple of dinosaurs and robots punch each other. But nevertheless, this film tries extremely hard to get you to care about the human characters by portraying minorities being shunned and being held back by white bosses. This movie is not subtle at all. Another woke aspect in movies I guess we're just accepting now is the killing of cops. This is something that first stood out to me while watching Black Panther 2, but on 2 occasions the Transformers just murder police officers. This film also doesn't comment on any of these moments, and none of these moments contribute to the characters' arcs. Why even include these woke elements if they aren't even going to be used to further the story? It's because, for now, these types of movies cannot stand on their own by completely alienating the conservative moviegoer. It's astounding to me how much gender and race politics can be pushed into a movie before even conservatives care or notice. This is a Transformers movie. It should be about robots fighting even bigger robots, not about how the main character who's going to a job interview needs to remember to laugh at the boss's jokes because, quote, white people love that. The movie's words, not mine. Hollywood tests boundaries. It never goes all in right out of the gate. It will slowly inch further and further until, whoops, the entire movie has no redeemable qualities and it happened right under your noses. I tend to have a standard for how much of this agenda I'll tolerate, and I drew my line in the sand the second I heard there was going to be a new, fun Transformers movie. I walked into that theater, and that movie stared me straight in the eyes and stepped over my line thrice. For me, that's enough to receive my opposition. This is all to say that I know these crappy blockbusters have their place, but I hope that I've shared my perspective, that these movies are valueless. This film does not say anything or show anything we haven't heard or seen before. Now we're going to move over to the spoiler section, so if you don't want to stick around for that, you should skip on over to the rating section right now. Alright, the spoiler section. It turns out there actually was a major development coming out of the end of this movie for this movie's franchise. It was actually the only interesting idea that this movie had, and it saved it till the end. So the main character, Noah Diaz, is going in for what he assumes is a job interview. And then the manager ends up recruiting him for a top secret government agency. And that's when you learn that the top secret government agency is none other than the G.I. Joes. That's right, the other Mattel-owned toy property. A Transformers and G.I. Joe crossover actually sounds like an interesting idea. But what does this even mean? Are the 2 original early 2000s G.I. Joe movies a part of this franchise? Is that horrible Snake Eyes reboot from 2021 a part of this franchise? Are the Michael Bay movies a part of this franchise? This movie left me with so many more questions than answers. And to be honest, this movie was such a struggle to watch, it was not worth that 2-minute scene. They are supposedly making this a trilogy of movies following the Beast Wars storyline, which I was not familiar with. But if the other 2 are as bad as this movie, I don't think we'll ever get a team-up film. That's it for the spoiler section. That was a short section today. Now let's move on to my rating for the film. Alright, should you see Transformers Rise of the Beasts? No. I don't think you should give this film any money. I ended up going way harder on this film than I thought I would, but I don't tolerate movies compromising my ideals. And this is a show about recommendations. So if your views are aligned with mine, I can't honestly tell you that this film was worth $15. I'm giving Transformers Rise of the Beasts 1.5 stars. This was a very poor film. Alright, that's all I have for today. Next week I'll be reviewing The Flash, so look out for that. If you like this video, you'll enjoy my review of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. You can follow me on Letterboxd to read my short and witty reviews of films I watch daily. You can listen to the podcast version of this show only on Spotify. And yeah, subscribe or something so I can keep affording to pay for these videos.